Today I want to talk about lap sequences for the handpiece machine. So recently I've been working on a project, so I did this huge set of 50 stones all in synthetic spinel. And over the course of like the month and a half that it took me to cut the stones, I was able to kind of play around with my lap sequence. And since I knew that I was going to be doing so many of the same stones and I didn't really have the same kind of variables that gem cutters normally have from cutting all different materials, I was able to kind of play around over the 7 weeks and experiment with some new techniques for the handpiece machine as far as polishing goes. That kind of really helped speed up the whole process of making this set, and I wanted to share a bit of what I learned today. So previously my lap sequence was something like this. I would do my preforming on a plated lap. This is the Dreamer 240 from Taipei, Taiwan. So normally that's my preforming lap. Then I will go to a centered 600, so this is a Russian centered 600 that I use. And then from there, currently I'm just using an old 1200 topper just to give me a super smooth, thin or fine finish that I do all my small facets with. So I do the whole stone in the end on the 1200. That hasn't changed. I still think that's a great technique. Coming out of 1200, you're ready to pretty much go anywhere. So normally, the way that I teach students in the school is we'll go from 1200 topper lap straight to the 02 diamond powder. So 02, this is like 14,000 by American grit sizes, and that's pretty much commercial standard polish around the world, whether you're in Asia or Europe or whatever. 1400 or 02 powder is the way we do it. And so normally we'll do it, let's say, on a bat lap. So this is my bat lap. I've got 02 here, so I can just go straight from 1200 to 02. Stone is finished. But lately I've been wanting to play with some higher polishes as an experiment to see if I can visually see a difference between, let's say, 14K and 60K. And so I've been playing around. So normally the normal sequence, I would say, for let's say a cutter in America or someone using a mass machine, they're going to have maybe the same cutting sequence that I'm using here, but then they're going to have a more extended polishing sequence. So I think the normal, let's say, competition grade polishing sequence could be 3,000, 60,000, 100,000, 200,000 if they're going to go to that point. But a lot of people are doing either 3,000 or 8,000 as a pre-polish, and then 60,000 or 100,000 or both as a final polish. And what I've kind of, the conclusions that I've come to in the last, let's say, 6 months about polishing with the handpiece, this is really maybe the one area I would say where the handpiece is deficient compared to the mass machine. The mass machine is so consistent that when you jump around from angle to angle, from lap to lap, when you're going through your polishing sequence of 3,000, 60,000, 100,000, whatever, and you're using all different laps for each one of these, the mass machine always really goes back to the same spot, or it's easier to find the same spot. When we're cutting on the handpiece, at least in my technique, I'm constantly adjusting either the cheater if I'm on the cheater handpiece or the foot if I'm on the foot. So when I go to that first polishing step, I'm adjusting things as I go. I'm pushing facets around. Every facet is slightly in a different place, which doesn't take away anything from the final stone, but does make it very hard to go back and find those subtle adjustments again. So in my experience, going from, let's say, a 3,000 grit on whatever lap, and doing your whole tier or your whole stone, and then going to your next step on a different lap, which might be 100,000 grit, it's not really possible, or at least not time efficient, for us to go back and find each one of those facets that we've manually adjusted. And I find that you end up giving yourself a lot of extra facets or polishing adjustments or just overcutting that I haven't been able to figure out a way to avoid. So here's my new idea. And this isn't my idea, this is just an idea that I've adapted for this machine, but it ends up working really, really well. So normally, or at least before, using just one lap, right? 0, 2, finished, it's done. But now I want to add a second step because I want to go to a higher level of polish. I've experimented with just going straight to 0, 1, which is about 60K, but 1200 to 0, 1 is too big of a jump. Sometimes it works, but the polishing is really, really slow, and what I've found is it usually chips off the girdle edges or the facet junctions look abraded, and it's just not a good finished product. So we need to have one step in between our 1200 topper and the 60K 0, 1, which is what I want my finishing step to be now. So what I've done is, and I've done this 2 different ways, but I happen to have this gear loose dominatrix lap. So this is a dual band lap. So we've got bat on the outside, matrix on the inside, and it's meant to be used as a two-step lap. So I had the lap resurfaced, and I changed my outer band to 3000 grit, which is here approximately 0.5. This is what we're buying here in Thailand. And then on the inside I have 60K or 0.1 diamond powder. And what I found is when I go to the 0.5 or the 3000 grit, I can do all of my initial adjustments so that I can make my meet points perfect. I can make sure that it's a flat facet, and then wipe off the facet, jump to 60K. No adjustments need to be made. Jump from there to there, and it's very, very simple, fast, and easy to jump, so you're getting a higher finish polish level than you were before on one lap. It doesn't really take any extra time because we were already starting on the outside edge and using the inside edge as the final buff, but now the final buff actually has a higher grit. And theoretically, on this particular lap, since we have this sort of ceramic matrix material on the inner ring, it should actually be a little bit flatter. Though if you don't have one of these, it doesn't matter, because actually you can do the same thing on a bat lap. And I've actually done this before. You can't see it anymore because I've had it resurfaced, but I actually used to have this bat lap divided into 4 different rings. This is when I was on a mass machine. I had 600, 1200, 60,000, 100,000, or something like that. So you can actually just use one flat bat lap or even a copper lap. Maybe just get a marker and draw a black ring so you know where's your 2 rings are. But you could easily have a 3K or an 8K on the outside and a 60 or 100K on the inside. And with the handpiece specifically, you'd be able to make all of your, quick polishing movements on the outside and then just give it a final touch on the inside. And so about halfway through the process of polishing this set, I went from just using my 0.2 bat lap to using my 0.5, then 0.1 dominatrix. And what I found was not only is it, obviously it's a little bit shinier at the end, there's less visible cat hair scratches or anything like that. It's faster because the 0.5 is cutting faster than the 0.2. So your first touch is actually getting rid of that 1200 skin faster than the 0.2 was. But then you're getting to the polishing state faster. And then wiping it off and giving it 1 second touch on your inner ring takes it up to 60K, and just in general, you've saved some time. So I really think for anyone that's using a handpiece and has let's say a spare lap that they can experiment with, try this technique, 0.5 and then 0.1, or if you're using American sizes, it could be 3,000 and then 60,000. From 1,200 in this experiment and in my experience, this is a better way. And for the handpiece, which let's say is not as engineering precise as a mass machine, this is really kind of picking up any slack that there might be between these 2 machines as far as higher levels of polish. Now for people that want to use the handpiece machine to go to, let's say, competition grade, so if you need to go to 100,000 or 200,000, this technique might also be possible. Maybe not with the dominatrix lap, but with a regular bat lap, you could possibly divide it into 3 parts if you have an 8-inch lap. I think on a 6-inch lap, dividing a lap into 3 parts is going to be kind of challenging just to find enough room. But I think definitely you could a 6-inch lap could divide into 2, and then if you have an 8-inch lap, you can probably divide it into 3. The caution being, you have to make sure that you wipe the facet off every time so that you don't cross-contaminate. But in my experience, I found it's really not that hard to do that. And basically, if you're, for instance, for me, I've got my 2 diamond powders just sitting up here, and they're labeled, so I know one's 05, one's 01. I just use 2 different fingers. I know I've read other people do the same thing. If you're using your index finger to wipe your slurry on for 05, use the middle finger and just be a little bit more conscious. I know here in Bangkok, where, in the factories that we work with, contamination is obviously a problem, and when you've got 15 cutters who are cutting, 25 stones a day, you don't really want to have any variables in the factory that are going to give you a problem. And cross-contamination is definitely one of the variables that the factories look to avoid. They need to go fast and they need to not have any problems. So using an entire factory worth of cutters only using the same grit means no issues. But if you're cutting at home like this and you're looking to take your handpiece experience to a higher grit, I say try this technique. It works quite well. And as I've seen with this experiment, I'm saving time and I'm getting a faster, better polish. So check it out. Let me know what you think. If you're using this already with a handpiece, tell me what you're doing in the comments. And maybe you've got an even better technique for, whether you're using like a Sri Lankan machine or a Raytech Shaw. If you've got another technique that you're using to get up to these higher levels of grits, such as 100 and 200,000, let me know in the comments, because I'd be really interested to see what other people are doing with a handpiece machine specifically to get into higher levels of grit, but still saving time, which for me is my main goal. So thanks you guys for listening to this, and let me know if you have any more ideas, and I'll be happy to try them out. Check you later. Bye.